I'm happy to report I finished the race and I got my BQ at Marquette, and I was really happy about it. Obviously, it's a huge achievement, my first time qualifying for Boston, and it's kind of all the more special just because of the circumstances I had to go through, especially even just recently. Um, really thought I was on track for a BQ back in March when I was going to run Myrtle Beach and got injured. I was running really fast. I was setting PRs left and right, and my confidence was just sky high. And I had the injury, and then I had to come back from that, and it's been real hard. I ran Bayshore because I got a free entry into that, and I didn't have enough time to get back to top form after missing a couple weeks with injuries and running through pain. I had runner's knee 3 consecutive times. Over and over again. So every time I got healthy, I was injured again. And even though I was trying as hard as I could to train through it, my quality obviously wasn't that good when I was limping on both legs. So took a while just to get back. I was happy to run Bayshore. That went really well. I ran like a 3:20 and change, and was really proud of myself for that. And it really helped boost my confidence to the point where I thought going for a BQ was still possible. But even this summer then, with the hotter weather and just other factors, I don't know if I kind of worried if I was overtraining, and my race times, my tune-up races were all on the slower side, kind of disappointing performances. And even before that, like the last couple 5Ks I did back in spring were both still like underperforming. So I was really not confident very much at all. Like, I was confident I could do better than Bayshore, but I really wasn't confident I was going to get my BQ at all. And even through this race, like at about the 4 or 5 mile mark, I started, like, my calves started to feel a little funny, like, and I was just like, this is not a good sign if my legs already aren't feeling good. Like my legs, even at the start of the race, I didn't feel super fresh. I don't know exactly the reason for that. I did taper quite a bit, but maybe I should have, taken like a day off before the race or something like that. I did 4 miles the day before the race, which, isn't much, but definitely my legs didn't feel super fresh. I didn't feel like super great. I didn't sleep real well. I was camping as well, so, but yeah, so I got through those first 4 or 5 miles. My legs felt a little iffy, and I was like, okay, this isn't a great sign. And then about mile 10 at Marquette, you start going aggressively downhill. And I got to that point, and I felt okay. I basically felt borderline the whole race. Felt okay that whole way going downhill. But then I was really worried coming out of that, because last year that's where my legs fell apart. My quads were just torn up from that downhill, and I just kept thinking that the same thing was going to happen again. I was like, there's no way I'm in worse shape than I was last year, so I'm going to do better than I did last year. I'm confident of that, but I'm not confident I'm going to make it 26 miles without falling apart. So really was a little bit concerned. I got to mile 16, I think, and that's where I had started faltering last year, and got through that strong, and I'm like, okay, I'm still going good here. I don't feel great, but I'm still redlining. I'm still on my feet. I'm not gasping for air. My legs aren't dying on me. And then I got to like mile 18, and mile 18 is where I started to walk last year, because my legs were just shot at that point. And I was still running, and I still didn't feel great. When we got into town there, the wind started blowing and started raining more. We were kind of sheltered up until that point, being on the trail, in the forest. The wind doesn't cut through that very well, obviously, and the rain is kind of sheltered too and stuff. So that's the point where things kind of got nasty once I got into downtown Marquette there. And so I was still, I was feeling pretty good. I got to mile 18, 19, 20, 21 even, and I was like, I'm hanging in there. I'm keeping my target pace here. I'm doing pretty good. And then, if you know the Marquette course, there's a pretty big uphill as you go into Presque Isle Park. If you're heading towards Black Rocks, if you're familiar with the area, there's a pretty steep incline. It's not a tall hill, but it's just very steep. So I hit that hill, and my pace slowed dramatically. I got down to like 7:48 pace or something like that. And what was worse than that was when I got to the top of the hill. I mean, I was actually, like, I could feel my heart was beating harder, and I was struggling to breathe. Like, I was gasping a little bit, and I was like, oh no, don't tell me this, I'm gonna fall apart here after getting all the way here. But I still kept persevering, and after that, luckily, it's very much downhill for the next, I don't know, half mile, 3/4 mile, something like that. And so I was able to pick my speed back up, and my next mile there was like a 7:09 pace. So I was able to get right back on track. I was back to breathing normal and everything like that. And then I was feeling pretty confident again. I got to mile 23, got to mile 24, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And it was raining and blowing, and it was cold. I was just wearing a singlet and shorts, and but I was like, I think I got this now. I think I got this now. And I was passing some of the people who were just dying on their feet, that had went out too hard. And that's always a good feeling when you're like, okay, I'm passing people here who are falling apart. That's a good sign that I'm in good shape here. And if you know the Marquette course, or if you don't, the final like mile and a half is uphill, and like the final 3/4 of a mile is like aggressively uphill. Rather steep. I mean, it's not steep, but it's a pretty big uphill. If you look at the course profile, maybe I'll post that in here just to show you. But there's quite a big uphill for up to the finish line. And so I got to that point, and I was checking my watch like every 5 seconds, because I was like, how much further do I have to go? And I didn't even. It's a long straightaway to the finish line, and I didn't even want to like keep focused on the finish, because I didn't want to recognize how far away I still had to go. So I tried to just focus on, the next 5 steps, just make it another 5 feet. And so that's what I was doing. I was basically just trying to, just put everything I had in it. I tried, I was hoping I would have something in the tank to go for a final sprint and really finish strong, but it was everything I could do just to maintain my pace, basically. The last tiny little bit, I did accelerate a little bit. I looked at my Garmin profile, and I actually, I think my last the last 0.2 miles was at like the 7:03 pace or something like that. So I did pick it up a little bit, but definitely didn't have anything left in the tank. I think I pretty much redlined it the whole way, even splits pretty much the whole way, with a little give and take for hills and things like that. But when I crossed the finish line, it was just an amazing feeling, because I was just, overwhelmed. I thought about how hard I worked to get there, and it still really hasn't sunk in. Like, I ran a 3:11:07. I'll be turning 40 before race day, so my BQ qualifying time was 3:15. So I qualified by 3:53, 3 minutes and 53 seconds, which historically should be good enough to actually get to run the race. So it's looking pretty good. I'll know for sure whether I can run the race in a couple weeks, but it's looking very good. So that was actually better than I had even hoped. I was shooting for maybe going for like 3:12, low 3:12s, right around 7:20 pace. I finished at about 7:17 pace. So that was even better than I really would have hoped. I got a little concerned, about halfway through the course, that I should have been more conservative, because I did go out a little, some of those miles, I was doing like 7:14s and stuff like that. And I was like, I hope that's not going to come back to bite me. I was trying to be conservative, but at the same time, it's like I felt okay doing that. That's a tricky balance. You never, it's hard to know until you've done it, what you're capable of, and like, it's obviously better to save yourself for the later miles than to go out too fast and fall apart. So yeah, I was basically in tears at some point after the finish line, to be honest, and just thinking about all the hard work I put in, and achieving a lifetime goal, especially when I wasn't confident at all that I was going to be able to pull it off. I kind of surprised myself a little bit. And so yeah, it was a really great feeling. The course, I should definitely send out a kudos to all the volunteers and stuff, because the conditions got really bad, especially towards the end, and they were out there cheering us on and being positive even when they were, bundled up and getting rained on and stuff like that. So that was really great. The people really did a good job with the drinks and stuff. It seemed like especially good this year, because I was running, trying to get the Gatorade in the water on the fly, and they were really good at those handoffs and everything like that. So I did that. Actually made an impression on me. But yeah, as far as what I think made the difference, I definitely am leaning towards this high mileage has really put me over the top. I ran upwards of over 112 miles in 1 week in these last couple training sessions, and went over 100 miles several times. And I really think, if nothing else, like psychologically, that made me feel more confident that I'm my endurance is there. There's no question about my endurance. I can run, in the middle of the week, I can do a 15, 16 miler on a Wednesday and come back on a Sunday and run, 20, 24 miles, something like that. So that I really think put me over the edge as far as just being, having that Ironman endurance. And the only question, in my mind was being able to hold the pace for that long, a fast pace. Like I had no doubt I could finish the race, at a comfortable pace, but it was just like, how fast can I go? So I definitely think that has paid off. Of course, the devil's to be the devil's advocate, you could say, well, maybe you would have even done better if you hadn't done so much mileage. If you had done more speed and less distance, and it is an interesting question, right? That's hard to say, but I definitely, it's the one thing I'm not a contrarian on, as far as a lot of people tend to these days think that it's old-fashioned to just run high mileage and expect to get good performance out of that, and running a lot of junk miles and stuff like that. But I really believe that that helped me personally. And of course, the danger is there that you can get injured. The more you run, obviously the more opportunity you have to get injured. So it depends on your body. It depends on what you can handle, obviously. I'm not going to recommend that everyone out there go out and run 112 miles a week. Obviously, certain people just aren't physically capable of that. And you can perform plenty well without doing that. And there are people who are way faster than me who run less miles than I do. There's no doubt about that. But it's just, for me personally, that's what I think that's what it takes for me. As far as what my next steps are, I'm actually going to take a recovery cycle here the next 5 weeks and take it relatively easy, let my legs recover. I haven't really done that in years. So I've been going after this BQ aggressively, so I now have the luxury. I'm going to take a little bit of downtime. I'm still going to be running, but it's just going to be, I'm doing a legitimate, I'm going to do 18 miles or something like that this week, and then get up to 50 some miles by week 5. But relatively speaking, I'm taking it pretty easy. And then I'm thinking I'm going to do a bit of a speed cycle. I'm going to try to I'd like to see if I can get my 5K time knockdown, PR knockdown on. And so yeah, I'd kind of like to do a little bit of a speed work cycle and see how I can do, because that'll only benefit me then long term. But I'm also a little worried isn't the right word, but I want to juggle that with maintaining my endurance. I don't want to stop doing long runs or anything like that, and lose my endurance for Boston. I hope to do as well as I can, when I run Boston. So yeah, but that's my kind of immediate plans. I'm not going to do any race. My next race I'm going to do is in mid-October, and I just don't think I'm going to do anything before that. I really just want to take it easy, let my legs recover, and just take a little bit of a break psychologically from racing so much. So that's basically my plans. That's about all I have to say. I might do a follow-up on this just to kind of go through my training and what I think got me to this point. I talked about that a little bit already, but I know a lot of people out there are trying to BQ, and if there's anything I can do to answer those questions or make recommendations. Not that I'm an expert by any means, but I did work very hard. It took me 3 years. My first marathon I ran was less than 3 years ago, so I went through all kinds of PT and injuries and things like that I had to fight through, and really worked my butt off. I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning to do long runs before work. I would run, 20 milers in Minnesota in the winter when it was 30 degrees below zero outside, and just, really worked my butt off. So if there's anyone has questions or, comments or whatever, I'd be happy to do my best to answer them. And thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support I've gotten. Thanks to everyone who's, all my family and friends that have bought me running gear for Christmas and things like that and helped me out along the way with, support or anything basically. It's really a dream come true. It was a lifetime goal of mine, and like frankly, now that I'm like a little bit lost now, because it was like that was basically driving my existence for a while. Like this was the thing, like if I would have had to quit my job to BQ, I would have done it, because that's how, dedicated I was to achieving this goal. So yeah, it's a little bit bittersweet in that way now that I've done this, because it's like, okay, now what do I focus on? Obviously I can get my PR down. I can shoot for, I'd love to try to get under 3 hours for a marathon time. I think that's about, the most aggressive I can be realistically to shoot for, which it would be a great achievement for me, because I'm only getting older, only have a couple years left really before I'm going to start deteriorating. So yeah, that's probably my next goal. I'd also like to get my 5K times down and something like that. I'd also like to do some of these crazy trail races I do, like Mont Blanc. I might go back and do the full marathon next year. I'm kind of thinking about that now, especially that I got my BQ out of the way. So I'm thinking about that. I'd like to go back maybe and do Pikes Peak again, and maybe find some other trail races, crazy, unique experiences out there. I'd like to get an ultra in somewhere. It's just hard with so many races, it's like I wish I could freeze time and just do all these races, but you got to work it in your schedule, and it's just hard. But yeah, I'm just kind of rambling now, so thanks for watching this. Subscribe if you like the content. I'll be back soon. I got a new shoe review that's going to be coming up. Maybe I'll do some more training topics, talk about my training, especially leading up to this BQ and stuff. I followed Fitzinger here the last couple training cycles, so I can maybe do kind of a review of that and what pros and cons and things like that. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. I'll shut up now, and I'll be back soon.